What are your feelings like going into something like this?
You think it's cool. You think it's sexy. You think, you know, you're going to prove yourself in battle. That's the ultimate.
Did it match your expectations when you got there?
No. When you see the devastation, when you see people get hurt, when you see the people, your side is killed, you know, it's sorrowful. When we as mankind have to resort to war to settle our differences, I think of very few things are sadder than that.
Welcome back, everybody, to the On the Rocks podcast. I'm your host, Johnny, here.
This is
Welcome
John.
back with my dad.
Yep.
And Colonel Gregory Gadson. But before we start, my dad wants to read a quick passage from his book.
Okay, this is putting me right on the spot since I never had the opportunity to read this, but I will. Okay, so the After Action Report by Gregory D. Gadson, Colonel Gadson. This book is not the story of one man's arrival to this moment, this place of peace. In fact, I did not have that much to do with it. It was my Lord and my Savior, Jesus Christ, who brought me to the opportunity to struggle, the room to hope, and the courage to keep living. It was him, along with my family and the brother and sisterhood of friends and supporters, the ultimate team who delivered me to this freedom. Want me to keep going? That was pretty good.
That was good.
You would think damn, I'm getting emotional right now. I say freedom because I truly am freer now than when I had my legs. It's true. I would not change a thing. Freedom, the obvious definition, is what we found, what we fought for in Iraq and Afghanistan and Bosnia and Vietnam and in two world wars and in every other conflict in the United States has engaged. But to me, freedom is also disengagement from anguish, from worry about the future, or relieving the past. Freedom is presence.
That was very well written. You mentioned something in there about you feel more free now than you did when you had legs, and we'll obviously get into that. What did you mean by that?
Well, you know, I wasn't dealing with injuries, and you know, you get into the slog of living every day in life, and you're worried about this and you're worried about that, and you're calculating this and you're calculating that, and those are the things that encumber you. They're the invisible chains that we all walk around with at some time in our life. And when I lost my legs, I don't like saying I lost my legs. I gave my legs. I was serving, and I didn't lose them and couldn't find them. I gave my legs in service to my nation. But it stripped away all of that varnish. It stripped away all those kind of things that you worried about. I now had to put my life back together again, and I couldn't put my life back together again with all that crap hanging off of me. And once I figured that out, I said, you know what? I'm not going to let this stuff ever get in my way again. I'm not going to drag this kind of stuff with me in life. And that's why I'm freer, because I am not worried about what you think, what somebody else thinks, I mean, I know what right and wrong is, and I know what my heart and my intentions are. So, you know, I'm not perfect, but I ain't trying to hose anybody. I'm not competing with anybody. I'm just trying to live my best life.
Was this an instant realization, or did it take you time to have like a why me period?
A little of both. I mean, it was, I say it was pretty quick. And it started with something your father read in talking about my faith. I have to start there because after I was wounded, you know, after I was pissed off and using every curse word under the known to man, I quickly recognized that I was wounded. And my last thought was to say, God, I don't want to die here. And I, you know, even now when I kind of think about it, I said, well, why wasn't I thinking about my family, my kids? I said, God, I don't want to die here. And that was my prayer. And through my soldiers and all the medical folks that touched me that night, he worked a miracle. a physical miracle from the standpoint that I would go through that night 129 pints of blood. I would drain the cache of blood, and they had to start a blood drive, a local blood drive, and they even had one of my first sergeants that they had prepared to be able to hook directly to me for blood. They didn't have to do that, but that's how far they were willing to go. I died or went into arrest 6 different times that evening. And so I say that's the miracle. You know, most people say, what a miracle. And I'm not going to dispute that. But to me, the real miracle was I've gotten out of the ICU and I'm on Ward 57 in Walter Reed. And there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of things going through my mind. Like your world is turned upside down. I mean, I can remember waking up in the morning, kind of slowly opening my eyes, wondering if this was a bad dream, and would my legs kind of be there. And so you can imagine the spectrum of emotions. But the one that was missing, Johnny, and I say, this is how I knew that I was already on a path to healing, was that I didn't have any hate in my heart. I mean, I was unencumbered by hate. And I could imagine, like, put the person in front of me and that did this to me and give me a loaded weapon, and I had no desire to even to score.
Did you think you would have?
I mean, it seems natural, at least, and you know, why not? But I was at peace. I'd already accepted what had happened to me. So therefore I was free. I was unencumbered.
So you mentioned those that helped after the incident. Medic Eric Brown was the one that actually tied the tourniquets around your legs.
Yep.
What is your relationship like? What was it like before that incident, and then what is it like after?
Well, great question. So first of all, Private Brown, he wasn't even initially a medic when he came in the Army. He was a chemical specialist, nuclear, biological, and chemical specialist, NBC. And, you know, as fate would have it, the medic that I was going to go to war with, he broke his ankle and he couldn't deploy with us. We asked the Army for a replacement medic. They didn't have one. And so my headquarters first sergeant sent Private Brown to a 2-week emergency medical training course at Kansas State University.
Oh my God.
2 weeks. And so when he finished, literally days before we were going to deploy, they were going to put Private Brown in one of my subordinate platoons and bring up one of the MOS medic, military occupational special medics, for me. I said no. I said it. First, I didn't want to disrupt the teamwork and preparation that we're going to combat. I didn't want to disrupt that. But I think in a more personal manner, I felt that young man was good enough for my soldiers and he was good enough for me. And so I kept him. So I didn't hardly know him, but we got to know him. I didn't know him, you know, I didn't really can't say I knew him very well at all before we deployed. But as we started to go out on patrol, we would get together, we'd form a circle, and we'd randomly, you know, when I started this, I would pray, and then I said, all right, tomorrow's somebody else's turn, just sort of random. And Private Brown knew the soldier's prayer by heart. And that always impressed me, them. So it's interesting that he put the tourniquets on my legs, and the doctors give him credit for saving my life. But B, many people don't know this, and it's in the book, but after they put me in a vehicle and they were taking me back to where I could get evacuated, my head was laying in his lap in the back of a vehicle, and I asked him to say that prayer. And he did. So anyway, just one of the heroes.
Do you know that prayer?
I don't know anymore. I can't begin to say it. No,
I read it in the. It is in the book.
Oh, if you could pull it up, then definitely.
It is, and
I would love to hear it.
All right. Well, you guys keep chitter chatting, talking. I mean,
You can
we
find- we
really
can wait for
really weren't queued up for all. Of
Well,
this,
then why? I
but
mean,
this
yeah,
book stuff,
this
but I
is
will
just incredible to
I'll
hear
find
about. Can we take one step back and just explain the actual incident and what happened to you?
Yes. So, you know, the irony of that evening. It had been a long day. I had some meetings with some local Iraqi leaders, and I knew that I was going to go to this memorial service at the end of the day, and it was for 2 soldiers in a sister battalion in my brigade. So I was one of 6 battalions that formed the 4th Brigade of the 1st Infantry Division. 2 of the battalions got stripped away to other brigades, and I was in one of those battalions that I didn't stay attached, or I wasn't fighting with my parent brigade. And so we were going there to pay our respects and honor these 2 young men who sacrificed their lives. But honestly, I think I was also I was going to see my peer battalion commanders that I hadn't seen in several months. I was going to see my boss, who I hadn't seen in several months, because we were hooking and jabbing all every day, and just our paths didn't cross. So so after the memorial service, I visited with my boss and a good friend of mine named Pat Franks, who was the 128 Black Line commander, and I remember First Sergeant Johnson, who was the senior NCO in my patrol, said, sir, we got to get back, we got to get going. And so finally, we mounted up. We were in a 4-vehicle patrol, and we're going to head back to Liberty, which was the base I was on. And not too long after leaving Fort Operating Base Falcon, I got hit. I mean, and what's so memorable about that evening was, first of all, I was bumming. I was bumming about these 2 young men that had given their lives, and like, are we fucking making progress here? Are we getting, is all this worth it? It was sort of this, not doubt about the mission, but also, but certainly just, this is a lot of sacrifice. And, sometimes you're moving so fast, you just, you hear about almost every single day someone getting killed, but you don't know them. But then these 2 men are folks from the same place you came from, Fort Riley, Kansas. I mean, we had, on that 15-month rotation, we had 120 that didn't come home. 120. And, the world doesn't miss a beat. It's just like, WTF. So, FUBAR, yeah. So, but you got your job. My job is, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, and that's what I was doing.
So driving back from the service.
So driving back, that's when I got hit. Blast blew me out of my truck. I can remember, kind of flying through the air and hitting the ground and coming to a rolling stop on my back. And then, I was, my anger quickly shifted to realizing that I was hurt, and this was no joke.
And you were deployed where at this point?
This was Baghdad, Iraq.
Okay.
Yep.
What year was this?
2007. So remember the surge that President Bush announced?
Yep.
Yeah. We were the 2nd of the 5 surge brigades that he sent to Iraq. And
how long have you been serving at this point?
In the Army?
Yeah.
17 years.
Oh, so later in your
I was a lieutenant.
In your career,
colonel.
wow.
I was So I'd been to the 1st Gulf War, Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I've been to the Bosnia. I've been to Afghanistan already.
Yep. You graduated West Point in 1980.
89.
89, right?
Yep.
Okay. Plebe, you did the prep school.
Yep. Yeah.
With Nicky DeMiro.
Nick DeMiro.
I actually got to go visit and watch you guys play a game, scrimmage game.
That was cool.
Yeah, that was great. One of the best things I can say, in addition to not only knowing Nicky, but the fact that he went there, it just blew my mind. 18 years old, 17 years old in high school. What do you really know about patriotism? Not much. What do you know about defending, honoring, and respecting? Not much.
Yep.
And really quickly into that experience, I saw how it changed Nicky. I saw what it meant on a large canvas like that campus. And I couldn't believe just how West Point, the buildings, the structure, the history, and I got it. I understood.
It's an institution. It's bigger than us, right? It's bigger than
Unbelievable.
us.
And just how many different ways can you reflect upon those grounds, overlooking the Hudson, right? Seeing the vast landscape of the backdrop of the buildings, and then the football stadium up on the hill and the church, and it's like.
But why it's there, John? Think about okay, the only reason why that fort was built there was because it was the deepest part of the river and it snaked, and we were trying to cut the British off from their breakdown. We were trying to cut supply lines off, and so the river was deep and it had some sharp turns, so it was a slow point when they were navigating the river to get all the way up to New England.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So that's why West Point is physically there. It was a fighting fort.
And its location is ideal. When you see it, you understand it, because as you look out over the Hudson, you look out over the water, you're like, I get it.
You see the turns the ship had to make, and then they had guns on both sides. And so, just go back to the Battle of Saratoga, which was before we kicked the British ass, and we got all their guns. So the guns from Saratoga are the ones that got moved down to West Point so that we could cut the British supply lines.
I just thought again it was a college.
No, it's not
so crazy.
It's just a college.
Yeah. So
And how long has it been?
When did West Point? Well, what year are you talking about? Was it originally
by Thomas Jefferson? I think in 1809 or something like that.
Wow. A little history lesson today.
Well, sure.
I'm probably off on that.
That's all right.
I'm
not going to fact check
it.
I'm not going to fact check it. 1802. You're right
I was
there.
7 years off.
You're right there.
Well, all right. I don't feel so bad now. I knew I was a little off.
You're right there. With that, do you have I would love for you to read the soldiers. You say this is the soldier's prayer, right?
Prayer.
Now, do you guys say this every day? What was?
No. So only when only when I chose Brown to lead the prayer, he would say it. But randomly, it was all random. But I knew that he knew it, and so.
Did you guys all have to memorize this prayer?
No,
Brown.
It was just
he just memorized it.
Okay.
Clearly, Brown was passionate.
But is this like a shared prayer that all soldiers sort of know?
Well, they can know it.
Okay.
I mean, it's not hidden or anything.
Gotcha.
But it's not something that was mandated.
But it's known as the soldier's prayer. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So Brown had, at your request, recited the soldier's prayer, and it goes as follows: Almighty and all-present power, short is the prayer I make to thee. I do not ask in this battle hour for any shield to cover me. I seek no hope to smite my foe. I seek no petty victory here. The enemy I hate, I know. To thee, dear Lord, is also dear. The vast, invulnerable way from which the stars do not depart shall not be turned aside to stay the bullets flying to my heart. But this I pray, be at my side when death is drawing through the sky. Almighty God, who also died, teach me the way that I should die. And then Brown says, but you're not going to die here. Yeah, that's. We probably need some more tequila. I don't know.
You know what amazes me, even to this day? I mean, that's 17 years ago, and it's like it happened yesterday.
Well, thankfully, like we know you're here to share this, and guys like your men around you that were well positioned, not only for that day, but just in general, right? They train, like you said, a team and the group of people you put around yourself.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
No, I didn't pick any of them. They all are given to me. So, that's what that's what we got to make do in life.
Yep.
You mentioned that this moment, again, even 17 years ago, sort of feels like yesterday for you. Obviously, are there other moments that you can pinpoint from being overseas that are as if they were yesterday?
No, not really. I mean, it's not like, it's, you see my emotion, obviously, but it's got to be something that causes it. It's not, it's not something I think about, on a routine basis. I think I was talking to a friend recently, and so I say my alive day. We call the day that we got wounded is our alive day, and so that was May 7th. So that was last Tuesday.
Wow.
So it's just 17. So yeah, and I've been running to my travels. Like I went to go get a haircut yesterday on Fort Belvoir, and I ran into one of the battalion sergeant majors that was in Iraq. With me, Sergeant Major McCoy. I mean, he was, and when I was at Fort Morris last week, I ran into the son of the battalion commander whose soldiers that I went to his memorial service with. When I was down at Fort Liberty in February, I ran into the female non-commissioned officer that was the chaplain's assistant that set up the memorial service. I ran into one of my former soldiers that was the one that drove me after I got wounded. So it's, you have these moments when you just sort of bump into the past.
Yeah.
And everybody or a lot of people recall a moment.
How do you feel 17 years later? Is it a different feeling now versus a couple years after?
Yeah. It's 17 years, and so it almost feels like another lifetime ago. Like I've lived another life since then. Yep.
Right.
You feel detached from it almost?
Yeah. But yes and no, because you read that prayer and I get reattached to it very quickly.
Sure.
So,
Instantly,
but
yeah.
I felt like I was almost there with you as you're explaining the journey, and having read it, having heard you now share it, and then reading that again gives me goosebumps. So that's probably one of the better gifts of a book like this, and certainly for us now getting a chance to talk with you and just bring this just to a real place. It connects a lot of dots, right? So,
right.
I thank you for that. Not only obviously the service and the time you've always you given to your country. That's also something that I touched on when I alluded to the going to West Point and not quite understanding as a young man what that even means. I know when I shared with John the story of Nicky and his consideration going to West Point, I remember it was like it was yesterday. We're watching West Point playing football game, and we were in high school playing football. And Nicky goes, "I'm going to go play football at West Point." I'm thinking to myself, okay, I don't know how you're going to do that, but how do you do that? He's like, "Well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then I got to get a recommendation, and then I'm going to go." I'm like, "All right, sure." Then I'm saying, "Why?" But why? Why there?
Right.
I said, "There are girls there? Like, what are you doing?" And so so he went, and obviously that journey is not easy.
No.
It is right out of the gate. So to the point, no pun intended, wasn't accepted to go right in, right? You went to prep school.
That's right.
So the only way in for him, and obviously you, was by way of the preparatory school.
Yep.
And then you become a plebe your first year. And even then, you didn't even start, right? So what was it for you as a young 18-year-old person in high school? What connected you with the direction to go and serving? And
Well, it was I wanted to, Lawrence Taylor was my hero. He's from Virginia. I wanted to be LT, but my genes fell a little short or whatever, my abilities. But I still wanted to be a professional football player. I had my eyes set on that, and I worked as hard as I could to that end. I had all-state honors in football in Virginia. Was the captain of my state all-star team, and thought I had earned a scholarship to the University of Virginia, or they offered me a scholarship. And kind of at the last minute, they decided that they weren't going to offer me a scholarship, and they wanted me to come there as a walk-on. And I was kind of devastated. I was flat out devastated, and I didn't have a plan B. An Army football coach, defensive line coach named Ted Gill, came to my high school to recruit a classmate of mine named Tracy Branch as a potential Army football player, and my coach said, by the way, here's a good kid, here's a good athlete, and so I was sort of the strap hanger on my as a visit up to West Point, and I have to say that I took my visit up there, and really I didn't know what West Point was. And then unlike Nick, I didn't know anything about West Point, but all I cared was that they played Division I football, that they played football at the highest level, and that was all I needed to hear. And so I went there with a burn, with an anger, to prove the world wrong.
But did you process that? Okay, after you play now football at the highest level, you got to give back.
Yeah, I wasn't worried about that. I'll get to that when I come there. I'll get to that when I come there. Yeah, as we got closer, but I was going to do 5 years, and then I was out. I was I had a 5-year service obligation.
How? I don't know if you know this. How does it work? If you got drafted, let's say, to the NFL.
Well, back then it didn't matter.
It didn't matter. Now it's
you'd have to serve and then go play.
Well, Robinson from the Naval Academy, right, played basketball. He was like the last one that had. He contested that somehow.
Yeah, he had. What happened was, and I hate to even speculate, but here's a couple things that happened. So when David Robinson went to Naval Academy, he was 6'6". He grew 6 inches between his freshman and sophomore year. Jeez. And I think he was out of tolerance for even serving in the Navy at that height.
He's too tall.
Oh.
Yep. And so I think there was something, I would say, that was already understood, that he was not going to, he was a special case.
Sure.
So they let him play.
No, he had to do a reserve. He stayed in, he essentially did his time as a Naval Reserve officer.
Okay. Did he ever play in the NBA?
Yeah. David, the Admiral.
So just to back up, when you go and you serve the country and you get an education, nothing's free. You pay back in the time that you got.
Right. I understand that.
So that's it. That was the obligation. David Robinson was the first person that I can recollect that challenged it, or it was challenged, and he didn't have to ultimately. He was in, but he didn't have to serve equal amount of time, right?
Well, he was going to leave. He could have left, and they talked him into staying and said, "Look, we'll figure this out."
Yeah,
because of his height, he was essentially ineligible to even be in the Navy.
But it's since changed. I mean, I think he was on the precusp of like, okay,
now,
hold on, we've got some special athletes.
You still have your obligation; it just gets pushed.
So after you're done,
and then if you're 30-something years old, they're like, all right, well, we don't need you anymore. We're not. We're okay. We'll put you over in National Guard maybe or something, or help us recruit people.
Who was I'm drawing a blank on the safety, the Cardinals player, number 40.
Tillman, Pat Tillman.
Yeah, Pat Tillman. Right.
Yep.
And now he served while he was playing, right?
He wanted to.
No, he was a University of Arizona State University grad, had a pro career, and said, "I'm out. I'm going to serve."
Joined.
Yeah.
And then he
and they got killed.
Right.
He just joined. He just signed up and said,
Yeah. He
differently.
stopped playing pro football and just went in the Army.
So
enlisted.
that was one of the other questions I had. The differences between a West Point cadet or grad versus just enlisting. What are the major differences?
Okay, so enlisting is you're getting a specific skill, or we call military occupational specialty. So, you know, like I was an artillery officer, and so we are considered generalists. But within our profession, we have cannoneers, we have people that compute data, we have people that that man radars, we have people that used to get the weather so that we could, you know, make our fires accurate. So those military occupational specialties created our branch. An officer is a generalist. There are three commissioning sources. The vast majority of officers are commissioned out of the Reserve Officer Training Course, or ROTC. 70% of our officer corps comes from that. About 20% comes from the Service Academy, and then the other 10% is Officer Candidate School, or OCS.
Okay.
Yeah, so we call them 90-day wonders, shake and bake, whatever. So, but you've got to have, in order to go to OCS, you have to have some college.
Got it. Are you ranked differently upon enrolling?
No. So when we get commissioned, we all get commissioned as second lieutenant or butter bars. No, there's no advantage that you have over the other or anything like that.
But you're saying about an enlisted person. So
right. I'm saying someone that didn't go to West Point versus
okay,
you.
So an enlisted, your PV private 1 through E4 is enlisted, but once you go to the grade of E5 or sergeant, you become a non-commissioned officer. Now, you might be semantics, but just think about like the guys that your non-commissioned officers are the backbone of our Army, and they're the experts. You know, they're the expert cannoneers. They're the expert infantry. They're the ones that know exactly what needs to happen. They're the experts. Officers are generalists. We're managers, but as managers, because we're commissioned, we are responsible. A non-commissioned officer can have supervisory kind of authority, but only a commissioned officer is the one that has the responsibility. So when shit's screwed up, you know, we're the guy.
You know, that's why when you watch a lot of the war movies,
that's why I'm referencing Saving Private Ryan. When the guy walks in, he's already a lieutenant, and they kind of look at him as like he's this entitled whatever because he hasn't seen the battle they've seen. And
well, that's it. The non-commissioned officers would be the sergeants, the guys that are blood and guts from the ground up. Right. To his point, learning everything from the ground up. They learn from the top down, and to manage those.
Yeah.
Can you just go through from private to general, like every ranking in between?
Yeah, so, you know, PV1, that's, you know, all the kids in basic training. Some of them get promoted maybe to PV2, or maybe if they did junior ROTC in high school, then they might come in as a PV2 or even a PV3. And so there's sort of timing blocks that, you know, given a certain amount of time, you just have these automatic promotions unless you screwed up and you did something that someone would kind of pause you. Then one more specialist or sometimes corporal, and then sergeant, and then staff sergeant, and then sergeant first class, and then master sergeant, and then sergeant major. So those are the enlisted ranks, and then we have a warrant officer. So warrant officers are between enlisted and officers, and we have WO or warrant officer 1, warrant officer 2, warrant officer 3, warrant officer 4, and warrant officer 5.
Okay.
And then officer ranks are second lieutenant, first lieutenant, captain, major, lieutenant colonel, colonel, brigadier general, major general, lieutenant general, general. So a general is a 4-star.
So the general is the top of the top. It doesn't get to have that.
No.
Right.
And you're a colonel. So when did you be? You were a lieutenant colonel.
When I was
obviously,
wounded.
when
Yeah,
you were
as a
wounded.
battalion commander.
And then you became a colonel based on.
I got promoted after
Right.
I was wounded.
After the okay.
Clearly, right.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's helpful because again, I didn't understand if you enlisted as a private, let's say, can you ever rise above the ranks of, say, a lieutenant?
Yeah, yeah. So like Johnny was saying, Nick and I enlisted. We were private. We were P1. We were E1s. We were the lowest. We couldn't be any lower. We were E1s, and then E2s maybe. I know E2, and I didn't make E3, but at the prep school. Right. Then we were discharged from the Army and admitted into West Point.
Got it. Okay.
And so for the next 4 years, we went through West Point, and upon graduation, we were commissioned as second lieutenants.
Second lieutenants. Got it. Okay. So now, when your first war was Operation Desert Storm, correct?
Yeah, Desert Shield, Desert Storm.
You were a lieutenant this time.
Yep.
Right. That, and what year was that?
1990, 91.
What are your feelings like going into something like this?
Oh, honestly, you're excited. It's like it's the ultimate test. You're going off to war. You have these sort of, you think it's cool. You think it's sexy. You think, you're gonna prove yourself in battle. That's the ultimate.
Did it match your expectations when you got there?
No, and I would say once the war started, and it was a very quick war, really, 4 days or so. When you see the devastation, when you see people get hurt, when you see the people that, your side is killed, it was very, it's very, I mean, humbling is not the right word. It's sorrowful. I mean, I just think that when we as mankind have to resort to war to settle our differences, I can think of very few things that are sadder than that, because you know what? We can sit here and say good guys and bad guys and all that, but as a soldier, and I'm talking for soldiers, not terrorists, but as a soldier, we're doing what we're told.
Right. What was the purpose of Desert Storm?
So Iraq had invaded Kuwait,
right?
And there was a UN mandate that said you can't just bully and take over another country, and they wouldn't leave, and so there was a coalition. It wasn't the United States acting unilateral. It was a coalition that went into, and we didn't take the Iraqi government down. We just got Iraq out of Kuwait.
And they were controlling the oil fields at the time. Yeah. That was an economic move for them to take over.
Right. What made that war so quick? Did they retreat quickly? Like it wasn't.
Well, we were just quantums more professional. I mean, it wasn't just about being outgunned and better equipment, all of the above there, but we were just more professional.
Mm-hmm.
That was the quick, so inside look, outside look. And when you watch the news and President Bush made the decision, we're going to go and we're going to invade, it was over before you really kind of knew what was happening. And so credit to the United States government and military forces. That's all, like you said, proud stuff, but the actual what was happening doesn't come out until much later, and it's not a video game. Like no. This is, to your point, this is human
life
laying on others, taking lives.
Yeah, I mean, just killed like ducks on a road. I mean, just there's highway of death. I mean, there's these Iraqi vehicles just chewed up. I mean, they didn't have a chance.
Right.
Can you explain the differences between preparing for battle and then your actual first battle emotionally?
I would credit our training
He's talking about
as being very authentic, realistic, and even though we're not shooting real bullets at ourselves, the level of sort of focus and attention, I think, sort of transfers to the combat, and in some ways, it's like you've been there. I mean, like it's, you know what you're doing. You're not going, oh my God, this is real. No, you just you do what you've been trained. I mean,
the body doesn't go where the mind hasn't been.
That's right.
But I'm assuming it does feel a little more real when it is.
Not to me. I think it's real. I mean, and look, I like a point of pride as an artillery officer is that we don't have blank rounds. We don't have blank artillery rounds. We have live rounds. We shoot live rounds our entire career. Mm-hmm. The same live rounds we shoot in training back home are the same ones we shoot in combat. And so the level of precision, the level of accuracy, the level of the pucker factor of making sure you got it right is there in peacetime. And it didn't feel any different in war. The targets were different, but it's irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean, again, from our position, it's just so hard to even comprehend, you know, like what you're doing over there and your emotions. You mentioned before, after the memorial service, you take a step back and you say to yourself, you know, what are we doing? Is this worth it? Because I'm assuming as you are in it, it's harder to take a step back and really see the purpose.
Yeah. You're going to work every day and you don't know. I mean, there's no meter at the office saying we're making progress. Right. I mean, it's just there's very little feedback to know that you're making a difference.
Did it ever feel like you were making progress? Did something happen that you were like, okay, we're getting somewhere?
There were little things. Yeah, I mean, I felt like I felt like we were making progress because we were building relationships and building trust with our Iraqis, and so there was that sense of progress. But you know, there's asshole insurgents and terrorists out there frickin' trying to kill you. I mean, you know, May of 2007, 131 U.S. service members were killed that month. 131 guys didn't make it home. I was almost one of them.
Did you all sort of have the feeling of this is good versus bad?
You know, I think for me it's about we're out there doing our job. I didn't personally have time to go, is this good or bad? I got to do my job. I gotta make a call on whether or not someone's good or bad. You know, are they intent on doing us harm or not? But you know what? That stuff is so far away from, you know, what you need to do to live and survive and take care of your people. It's irrelevant.
Right. You're just going through the day-to-day of this is what I have to do.
It's irrelevant.
So that was your first deployment, which only lasted 4 days. Now, what was the longest deployment you had?
Well, I didn't. So the one I got wounded in would have been a 15-month deployment, but I got wounded about month 5.
And that was the war in Afghanistan, correct?
No, Iraq.
Iraq. Okay.
That was. I was in Afghanistan for 1 year.
Got it. But then, okay, that was supposed to be 15 months.
But the Iraq deployment was supposed to be 15 months. My unit was there for 15 months, but I got wounded in month 5.
Month 5. Okay. And what was the purpose of that?
That was to get Iraq stabilized. Remember, so the surge. So how old were you in 2007?
10. 11.
11.
Yeah.
So, you know, we had invaded Iraq in 2003, and so a fledgling Iraqi government had taken its place. Saddam Hussein fell and all that, but then a counterinsurgency started to build up, led by Al Qaeda, and they were threatening the stability of the country to a point where we didn't have enough force structure over there. So the president had to commit 5 additional combat brigades to Baghdad alone, just to get shit under control.
Right. It is interesting because, again, you mentioned I was 11, right? And what we learned in school was super high level, and we maybe didn't pay attention as much. What we saw on the news was 2001 happened. 2003, we go and kill Saddam Hussein. That
Yeah.
was all I knew, right? I saw
Right.
the videos of Saddam getting stabbed in the street. I was like, great, he's a bad guy. He's dead. Oh, we have more war. Okay, it must be just to attack his whatever counterparts. That's
Yeah.
all I really knew. So me asking these questions, it's just I've never learned it.
Well, it was so understand that this was considered a counterinsurgency, and really like Afghanistan, and so the enemy, it wasn't force on force. Like, I got this uniform, you got uniform on. No, these guys blended in to the population. They were terror. They would kidnap Iraqi citizens and put them in vehicles and duct tape their hands to the steering wheel to drive bombs, to drive suicide bombs. They basically said, imagine someone coming to your house and saying, hey, Johnny, you're going to get in this car or I'm going to kill your family. What do? You get in the car. So you're dead. But do you want to see your family murdered to you? And then they can still grab you.
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we were dealing with.
How do you even navigate that? How do you begin to?
OJT, on the job training. Yeah, I mean, you figure it out. You start, it all starts with a relationship. You got to build trust. You got to get to know people. You got to build trust. Once they build trust, they'll help you out. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's no different than the toughest neighborhoods in the United States. What do you do to get inside? Someone's got to have somebody on the inside. You got to have somebody saying, hey, these are the assholes that are causing trouble, and someone that has enough courage, someone has enough, cojones to frickin', tell on them.
Yeah.
And
Was the overall tonality from the Iraqi civilians that you guys were there to save them, or they didn't like you either?
well, not at first. They were there. They were unsure. They were unsure how long we were going to be there, or how committed we were. Were we just another American unit that was going to be there, and they'd get to know us, and then we'd be gone. So
Was that common?
well, it had been, so at one point we were over there on just 6-month rotations. And then, eventually we went to a year. And then in some cases, there were units that would even go 15 months.
When you say rotation, you mean 6 months in, you would leave, and then I'm assuming things would just go right back to how they were.
No, you leave, you get replaced by another unit.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, understood.
But think about it. You get to know a cop, or you get to know me,
Sure,
and I'm
yeah,
all
yeah.
of a sudden I'm like, hey, I'm out of here. Here's my new guy.
Sure.
Here's Joe. Joe, nice to meet Johnny. See ya. I'm
Yeah.
out of here.
And Joe may not have the same intentions as I do, or
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Joe's,
Joe's-
he's like, hey, I got to get to know you all over again. So
Yeah.
you start going through this cycle of getting to know people and having to build relationships, and so you're as much as you're taking a step forward, you might be taking 2 back.
Well, and you're reset, like you said, you're resetting. That's a tough
Yep.
place to
Yeah,
keep
you
it.
start treading water. You're not getting anywhere, and that's what kind of started to happen, and that's why Al-Qaeda, started to gain some momentum and gain some traction, because they weren't going nowhere.
Right.
Can you pinpoint a specific civilian that you established trust with that did help you?
Well, gosh, the names are long forgotten. I will say this: the progress that my organization, that my unit, 2nd Battalion, 32nd Field Artillery, that we made, we would ultimately capture the number 3 Al-Qaeda target in Iraq without a shot, because of the relationships that we built.
Without a shot.
Without a shot.
Well,
Were you part of that?
No, because I was already wounded.
Gotcha.
But it happened after me.
How did that feel, that you were gone and then it happens?
Well, I don't think I really knew about it right away. I tell you, that was probably one of the toughest things that I dealt with, was not being there. I felt guilty.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm in the hospital with half my body gone, and I felt guilty. I felt like I struggled with feeling like I let my soldiers down because I wasn't there.
That's intense. Meanwhile, you made the biggest sacrifice. Did that feeling
It wasn't the
diminish?
biggest, the biggest sacrifice of those guys that didn't come home.
Right. Did that feeling diminish? Did it over time feel like, okay, my team or my family, I guess, went on and did what we had to do?
Oh yeah, no, I certainly came to peace with that for sure, and I'm still in touch with a lot of those, Brown and First Sergeant Johnson and quite a few that I'm still close with.
Anybody live around by you? Do any of your guys?
No, I don't think so.
Everyone's spread out.
We're all over. I mean, just it's crazy, but I mean, it's a lifetime ago, and most of us, if not all, there's probably 2 or 3 handfuls that are still in the Army. Most of them are, most of them are done. Retired. Some have retired. Some have did 1 or 2 tours and got out, so just got on with their lives.
Are there any like reunions or events that people organize, put together to try to pull you guys?
Not at my level. The division we were part of, the 1st Infantry Division, there's an annual gathering. I think it was actually last month that they do out at Fort Riley, Kansas, where we're based out of. But we're not doing one yet as a whole. But maybe we will.
Yeah, someone will have to organize it.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe Nicky DeMero will do it.
Yeah.
Host everybody.
I'm going to see Nick later on this month.
Oh, are you?
I'm going out to Michigan. Unfortunately, we're going out to a celebration of life for one of my classmates, one of our prep school classmates, whose wife, I don't know if Nick told you about her, but she passed away a couple of months ago. So.
Okay. Yeah, I just talked to Nicky before we hooked up in the.
Yeah. Can I get a little more?
Yeah, sure. Take a break. Give him a little more. Freshen him up.
We only got.
Let him have
the Gratona.
the
Gratona.
Get the mezcal instead, or?
No, the Gratona.
Get the Gratona and the bring the mezcal. We'll taste it. Guy's thirsty. He doesn't want any of that water with chlorine in it.
I think I'm getting soft.
Doesn't want that Jersey City chlorine.
I'm almost crying.
Well, this is.
You said you're getting what?
You getting me emotional.
Well, it's good that you guys hear this.
I got emotional too, though. So
It's all right. All right, let me see here. So you got some options. You like?
Let me try. Yeah.
I think this
That one's good.
So Lobos, is that LeBron's or is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
LeBron's and who else?
I thought it was. Is it Wahlberg?
Oh, he's an investor. There's
I thought Wahlberg was part of it.
There's a lot of celebrities involved. LeBron didn't start it. So the guy Diego started the brand. He's like a 5th generation mezcal maker. But LeBron came on real early, and he was like a main investor. And then Diego was running into the problem where like it was just another celebrity brand, and he wanted to make sure like, look, he invested. He's not the founder of the brand. We really know what we're doing here.
Okay.
So that was like the issue they had, but.
What is the Wahlberg brand?
But it's not good.
Capital General.
Yeah,
Come on,
yeah.
it's whatever. So,
It's very harsh. It's hard. But it's the opposite.
818 is another celebrity brand.
Yeah, that's the
not
Jenner.
good. That's not
Who's
good.
that?
Kendall Jenner.
Jenner?
Yeah.
That's not good. They're all full of additives.
Well, what do you think about Codigo? That's George Strait's behind that
I
one.
didn't have that. Will you have
What
that?
is it?
Codigo?
I've heard of it.
Codigo. We had it. We did a video on it.
Wait,
Codigo.
Codigo.
We did a video on it.
We did a
You could
YouTube.
literally pull the YouTube up.
We did a YouTube. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. It was a while. Yeah. Listen, do you know how many things that, because now this is my occupation, I sip, I drink, we move on to the next. They're a blur. We did seltzer reviews just the other day, yesterday, and we did 4 different packs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a little
anyway.
bit.
So what's up? Is update? What is that?
That's an energy drink that we're
okay.
investors in. Yeah.
Well, so what's your
You like
morning
any drinks or no?
What's your morning routine like?
What's my morning routine like? Well, I get up. I'm a big supplement guy. I mean, I take it. Everybody looks at my supplement pack and like, what? Some of it is sort of diabetic related. Like I take some cinnamon. Magnesium is good for diabetics, and
Cinnamon for what? The cinnamon for what?
For your sugar for your glucose management.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
I've heard studies like that.
Yeah, cinnamon's. Yeah.
Do you drink coffee? You have coffee in the morning?
Sometimes I like to have tea. I like to have some chamomile tea and coffee. Like I didn't have any coffee this morning. I was like, if I have some coffee, I don't want to have to piss. So
The entire ride. Yeah,
So then, how do you deal with the afternoon crash? What do? What do you grab? You grab an energy drink?
No, I don't do any. Well, I'll look at the carbs. So I'm gonna read the label. If it's got more than 2 or 3 carbs, I generally don't.
This says 10,
Yeah.
4% by 10 grams, 4%.
So I probably wouldn't mess with that.
No sugars. Well, these are pretty good. I mean, in that they scientifically have taken the caffeine molecule and they take out the part that gives that crash, and paraxanthine, is the active ingredient in this, which gives you that boost. So,
Okay.
yeah, they're pretty good. They've been good supporters of us. We have had just a lot of people try them who like energy drinks, and they seem to enjoy them.
Yeah, well, and you start to, one of the things, I'm talking about my diabetes and just having to, manage it and get under control is, as you find out how uneducated we are as a society and what we eat and what we put in our body. I mean, and I had to educate myself. I had to learn how to read labels and make good or better decisions. And so, if I learned to do that when I was in grade school, maybe I wouldn't be where I'm at now, But we just, we got to do better than that.
Well, our food is so processed. Everything is so loaded with things. Even as much effort we put into it, we're kind of outmatched.
It's higher.
Of course.
It's all about
right. We're kind of, I guess when you
our
take
own worst enemy.
Well, again, and yes, and you take your average person, average means, average blood types, okay, they can get away with stuff. But then you have that one little variable, to your point, that's in your chemistry, body chemistry, that throws your system out of place.
Well, it's your genetics, it's what you have access to, and it's your activity. And so, a lot of people got 2 or 3 of those things already going against them, and so it's just sort of perpetuates. They're gonna get overweight. They're gonna the cheap food is the stuff that's the least good for you.
Sure, but it's filling because you can get 2 or 3 cheeseburgers for
That's right. So
a reasonable price.
Yeah. You're used to nowadays. You can't even.
Even that was what I was saying. Fast food is expensive as shit.
You get you can get some of the meals that are out there for like $5. It's not.
Oh, we did forget to ask you the one question. What did you say to the Giants back in 2008 to help them win a Super Bowl?
Win.
Here, guys, win.
Yeah. It was so. Look, the first thing I got to say is that my classmate Mike Sullivan, who came to visit me in the hospital when I was recovering in July, I think he'd come by, and just a couple of months after I got wounded, he came by to see me, and to this day, I really, have to thank him, but he saw something in me that that I didn't necessarily see in myself. And so he asked me if I'd be willing to speak with the team, and I said yeah. And so he ran the idea by Coach Coughlin, and Coach Coughlin agreed. And I realized these guys are taking a huge chance on me. So, Coach Coughlin has never let anybody outside the New York Giants even talk with the teams. So I'm an outsider. He talks to me Friday before the Saturday night team meeting, and, sight unseen, phone call, I'm going to show up there and talk to his team. I've got his team for 15 or 20 minutes.
Wow. And, so he never heard you speak other than a telephone conversation and said, all right, you're good. Based on Mike, you said you're
really based on Mike, because I didn't, it was a one-way conversation. When I spoke to him, he just talked to me about the team. I We didn't war game or strategy anything.
Now, they were already 0-2 at that point?
Yep.
Right, so that was the 2008 season.
Yep, 2007 season.
2007 season, sorry,
Yep.
right. 2007 season, they were 0-2. They were going into play Washington.
That was
the
2-0.
week?
Yep.
All right, so then you come in. You step on the scene.
You know, I shared, you know, it was maybe it's only a pretty short talk, 15 or 20 minutes, so not super long. I shared with them how Brown had saved my life, and I really just wanted to impress upon them this sort of this idea, remind them that, you know, you guys are fighting for each other. There ain't nobody in the crowd, nobody anywhere in the organization, but you guys on the ground. And you need to hold yourself accountable to doing your job and hold each other accountable, because that's all there is. And just sort of commit to that, you know, commit to just, you know, fighting for one another.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it was, again, it was a pretty short speech. I'm not a public speaker yet. No one knows who the heck I am. Just a team that was willing to take a chance on.
Yeah, and you were just what they needed, right, at the time. Things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
So God put you in their presence, and you know the rest is, as we know, left up to what the Giants did that year and came back and ultimately won the Super Bowl.
Right.
And so you made some really good relationships through that journey, because not only did they keep you, well, they had you for that day, right? Washington, they kept you through the whole season.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was there, but I was on the sidelines. I didn't engage with the team again until the Tampa playoff game, the wild card playoff game.
Okay, so you had that one conversation week 3.
Yep. I didn't. I was just at the Tampa game. Didn't talk with the team. I missed the Dallas game because I was back in the hospital for surgery, and then I was the honorary co-captain with Harry Carson for the NFC Championship game. Just 2 days out of the hospital. 33 below zero. Again, I didn't talk with the team. I was just there. I was like, and then on Super Bowl Saturday, on the way back from practice, I asked Coach Coughlin if I could talk with the team. And
What'd you say?
And it was funny. So in my mind, I knew I wanted to talk to him. But if Coach Coughlin said no, it wouldn't have broken my heart. And so part of me was like, I want to talk to him. Part of me was like, I want him to say no, so I don't have to. And Coach Coughlin said yes, and I was like, shit, what am I going to talk to him about? And the gist of what I said that night, to me, that sort of stands out was I said, you know, if I could be anywhere in the world right now, it would be where my soldiers are. But I know I can't be there with them. But I've had a chance to watch you all become a team, and I know that I'm part of this team. I told him that I would, if I went back to Iraq, I would take every single one of them with me. And I close with that we're going to be victorious tomorrow. There's not one doubt in my mind. So pretty kind of.
There you do it. There you have it. And so to that end, you have a Super Bowl ring, right?
I got 2.
You got 2.
Super Bowl 46. Yeah. Everybody, all those New England fans said it was a fluke, you know, so we did it again in 46. So
0-2 Tom Brady.
Eli, we're 2-0 against the GOAT. Right?
Oh, yeah,
Who's
I
the
know.
GOAT, right?
So you have a lot of friends, though, in this backyard then. I mean, Eli's up here, Plaxico Burris is up here, Tyree's up here, right?
You know, Plaxico was in my we're from the same home area. He went to Green Run High School in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Oh yeah. So going back to the first team talk. So I was going to sit in the stands with my family. We had seats. We had 4 tickets. And after I spoke with the team before the Redskin game, I call it my first drop the mic moment, and I didn't even know it because Coach Coughlin dismissed the team. It was several years later that I realized, or someone told me that he just canceled everything. He said nothing else needed to be said. And he dismissed the team. And I didn't, but I had no clue. I didn't know it was any different than anything.
Right.
And so I went in the room where they had their meals, and I went in to get a dessert. And Plexico Burris came down and sat with me for a little while. So 15, 20, 30 minutes or something. We just chatted about life or whatever. And so I go back home. My wife drives me back home. The next day we drive to the stadium with my kids. And when we're going in, they said, well, Coach wants you to be on the sidelines. And then they were like, well, what did you, and they're like, what did you say to Plexico? I'm like, because Plexico wasn't going to play.
He did, and he scored a touchdown that game.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
he gave you a ball, right?
Yeah, he gave me the ball. There was a go-ahead touchdown.
Yep.
But he wasn't even going to play. And they were like, what did you say to him? And I'm like, I don't know what I said to him. We were just talking.
That's it.
I still don't know what I said to him.
Why wasn't he going to play?
He had some injuries.
Oh, he did. Right.
And I think he had, was leaning for sure not to play. And apparently he did a 180 because they didn't expect him to play, and he
scores. That's
clearly you
incredible.
motivated him not to have pity on his own injuries when he's talking to a gentleman like yourself.
I didn't do anything. He did it. He made the decision. Mm-hmm. He looked into himself, and sometimes you sharing life and sharing experiences can help people sort of sort things out in their own head. So,
That's
well
great.
said. Yep.
Well, Colonel, we wrap up every podcast by asking the guest 2 questions. Number 1 is going to be, in life, what has been what you would consider the lowest of your lows? And let's follow that up with what has been the highest of your highs.
The lowest of the lows. Well, I've had a few. I say certainly, getting wounded is maybe the obvious one. But here's one that I'll share with you. I was a sophomore, or we call yearling at cadet at West Point, and we would go into our practice room by position. So I was an outside linebacker. We'd go into our team and into our position room. And first I go into a room and there's a guy that's in there that wasn't in our position the week before. And he's not saying anything, and sort of the elephant in the room. And shortly thereafter, our position coach comes in, and he informs us that his name was Lou Daney. He actually is a doctor. We're good friends now. He lives locally. But he said Lou's going to be starting this week. So I've been fired. I've been benched. And without warning, at least I saw no signs of anything like that. And I just remember having this feeling like I wasn't good enough. And that stung. But I had to look myself in the mirror and come to grips with that. And what was I going to do about it? And my proudest moment, man, I got a lot of those. My wife, the 27th of this month, we will celebrate 35 years.
Congrats.
Being a grandfather of 6 is certainly high on my list. But I had another Super Bowl that year that the Giants won the Super Bowl in '08. And to me, it was being able to greet my soldiers when they came back home from Iraq. And we were the only one of 6 battalions that brought everybody back. That's, I think, that's my proudest moment.
Well, you are one accomplished, impressive man.
Questions, man.
You make it easy, man. This has been the most impactful conversation I've had, regardless of the podcast. So I appreciate you coming on here and sharing with us and our audience. Finding waypoints, Colonel. Thank you so much again. Like, subscribe, share, all the good stuff, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Cheers.
Get the book.